The morning at the coastal base opened with a milky light, sweeping across the hangar and making the aircraft skins glimmer in soft silver patches. The scent of jet fuel mingled with the salt of the offshore wind, creating a familiar fragrance so strong that everyone inhaled deeply as if to load a promise. Today would be another safe day. In the briefing room, the whiteboard neatly displayed the plan. Takeoff 1410. Enter the training area to the north-northeast. Fly sweep patterns. Remain low under the clouds. Return before 19th feet. Below were the SOP lines, abbreviated but known by heart. Low-level VFR, stick to the compass. Common radio frequency, position reports every 15 minutes. Everything tidy like a newly bought toolbox, no detail wasted. Commander Charles Taylor entered with his cap pulled low, the gait of a man with thousands of flight hours who still kept the neatness of his early days. He said little. The cadets said even less. As planned, he wrapped the briefing in 4 words, then added, "If the clouds lower, stay low. If the radio crackles, repeat. No surprises." The thin smile at his mouth's edge made the scratching of pens stop, like someone just sealed a box. Tight, secure, silent. Kai, the youngest cadet, sat in the last row. Back straight, pen recording things everyone already knew, but he still wanted to write. The word safety was underlined twice in his notebook unconsciously. For Kai, training meant repeating what was already right. Procedure, rhythm, spacing, orders, each one like an old brick that had never broken. He always thought, if there was a place on Earth worth relaxing, it was the sky during a standard training flight. Outside, when the hangar doors rose, the strip of sunlight fell on the aircraft nose like stage lights. They touched fuselage skins, checked wings, locks, pitot tubes, tires, fuel caps. Fingers moved like delicate cables. Eyes scanned like lasers. "Ready," one called. "Ready," another answered. The readies strung together into a taut line, tight enough to keep the boat from drifting, but not enough to choke. On the taxiway, rubber wheels glided lightly, leaving a faint line like a thread. Tower cleared them. Taylor pushed the throttles, the engine surged and pressed into every chest in one beat. "Rotate." One word. Wheels lifted from the runway, the ground sliding down like a turning stage. Positive rate. Gear up. Maintain 2000, heading 060. Economical speed. The radio rhythm was like a pre-recorded track. No need for the conductor to glance back, the whole orchestra entered on time. The coastline receded to a pencil line. The sky spread wide with a sheet of cloud, not threatening but enough to hide the sun behind frosted glass. The formation stretched into a neat V, red-green wingtip lights blinking rhythmically like bioluminescent creatures. Kai looked at the compass needle pointing north-northeast with quiet gratitude. That small needle, on good days, was like a sewing needle stitching together all the fragments of Sky Seaman. In the training zone, the first sweep opened as smoothly as a compass arc drawn on a board. Lan, the navigator, read the waypoint. Taylor, Roger. Hi, the technician, reported fuel. Taylor, copy. Those Roger-copy exchanges were not mere ritual. They were finger taps on a wooden table, a rhythm just enough to remind everyone someone was watching over. On the second sweep, clouds lowered a step, but visibility held. Left 10. Roll. Hold. Taylor set the beat, the squad tilted, then straightened. Aircraft shadows sliding over the water like fish. At the end of the third sweep, shore radio slipped in a rare compliment. "Your altitude is like a straight line." A few young ones chuckled softly, not out of pride, but because it felt like a pat on the shoulder. Kai thought, safety isn't necessarily a number. It is the tone of voices in your headset, the distance between wings, the way the commander's hold fills every gap in your mind. He inhaled slow, exhaled slow. Everything slid along rails like a train on schedule. Amid the steady rhythm, a faint crackle swept the radio, like a fingernail across vinyl, then vanished. The formation didn't flinch. Taylor simply said, "Repeat position," then repeated the coordinates himself, voice flat. The tremor passed like a black cat crossing the yard, leaving wet paw prints on cement no one noticed. They flowed back into routine. Report, correct, hold, sip water, correct, hold. When the fuel needle dropped into its first yellow mark, Hui reported as if reciting a lesson. Fuel on board, 4 hours 40. Kai rogered, almost without thought. In the manual, that number meant plenty. It was like an offer of hot tea on a cool day. Change pattern, Taylor said, voice no different than a minute before, not warmer for good fortune, not sharper for clouds. He kept tone like he kept speed, inside the economical band. They went on, as they always had. Safety lived entirely in repeated actions. If someone asked, "When do you know you are safe?" the truest answer might be, "When you don't have to ask." And that afternoon, no one asked. They only heard the wind like cloth brushing, watched numbers step evenly, and believed everything would end on time like a sample problem. No one knew that at the far edge of those clouds, another afternoon was waiting, with corners absent from any manual. But in this moment, in cockpits warm with lamp glow, safety was a snug jacket, fitting on the shoulders, covering the chest, and no one thought about taking it off. The crack appeared not with an explosion, but with a tiny deviation. The compass quivered half a circle, then stopped. At the same time, shore radio broke in with garbled fragments. East, confirm. Unclear. Words cut like thread snipped midway. Taylor repeated, unreadable, say again. But the signal died. Silence fell like chalk dust, so light at first no one noticed, only felt a sudden coolness at the scalp. Maintain course, Taylor said after 3 beats. Ordinary words, but in that ordinary tone, Kai realized his hand had tightened the yoke slightly. He glanced up, saw number 2's eyes slide toward denser clouds as if searching for a streak. Nothing. Only gray thickening, like a drop of ink in water. Next sweep, the clouds sank lower. The sea below lost its silver, turned to lead. Lan's finger slid softly across the map, ruler tracing latitude lines. She whispered, "If northeast wind stronger than forecast, we need 3-degree left correction for 6 minutes." Taylor, copy, then issued the order. Those numbers, 3 degrees, 6 minutes, were like breadcrumbs scattered along the path, leading them out of uncertainty in small steps. The formation leaned, carving a soft arc on the sky. But uncertainty clings like salt haze. Shore radio flickered again, turn west, then died. Taylor looked at compass at artificial horizon, then said, turn west 12 degrees. His voice flat, but to someone who had heard him many times, Kai caught a subtle lowering by half a tone. Not worry, call it awareness. Awareness that from here, the manual held a little less safety. 15 minutes passed, Florida still a name on the map, not a sight. Sea and sky kept their conspiracy, blending into endless gray, without debate, without opinion. Hui reported, fuel on board, 3 hours 50. The number still good, but trailing it was a shadow. If more holding patterns. If waiting longer than usual. If winds stronger than guessed. Each if like a tiny hook catching at the corners of eyes. Leader, I see lights, right 20, number 3 said over intercom, trying to steady his voice. The squad's eyes shifted partway. Kai didn't see, or he did, but refused to trust it. Taylor replied, do not break, verify by frequency. Lan twisted the dial quickly. Silence. Unconfirmed. Discard, roll back. Taylor cut, swung the formation to the main track. A few breaths over the net sounded heavier, like passengers just missing a chance to jump trains, though no one yet knew if the train was wrong. A rain cell rose like a black wall ahead, swelling in just 2 minutes. Lan, can penetrate but costs fuel. Hui added numbers. Penetration plus 2% per 10. Left turn plus 12 plus 0.4. Taylor chose the turn. Left 12, hold formation, cost plus 0.4. The way he added cost put a price tag on the choice, like a product with marked value. The formation swung, contrails spiraling. Out of the wall, they returned to track, but raindrops spotted the glass like freckles on new skin. At the end of the detour, shore radio returned as the compass shuddered again. West, on hold west, the controller's voice tired like a man climbing. Taylor, Roger, then said on intercom. Ignore compass if it jumps. Hold artificial horizon. That line was a strap tightened on the seat. Kai felt his back pressed deeper into the cushion. He inhaled 4, exhaled 4, counting like skipping a flat stone. Somewhere ahead, poppy lights might exist, but now everyone knew might was most dangerous. Report altitude, Taylor called. Not technically necessary, but psychologically so. Each repeated number warmed the air like kindling. A few creases smoothed from foreheads. Afternoon faded, darkness matured. Safety suddenly felt like a thin cloak no longer covering the neck. Everything still per checklist, but in each hold, a small bubble popped. Not audible, only felt through skin. From afar, the formation looked perfect. Inside, someone had begun whispering, maybe safety is only a phrase. And once that question appears, the first cracks are already there. Not wide, but long. The turning point rarely arrives as thunder. It comes like a bridge collapsing at its middle span. No one saw the joints rot, but when stepped upon, the plank sank half an inch, then an inch, then split. For them, the turning point was disorientation, but the dangerous version. Disorientation with awareness, knowing they were unsure, shore dead. Compass erratic, horizon erased like a curtain drawn. Taylor spoke slowly, very clearly, like teaching children to thread beads. Drop compass. Hold artificial horizon. Heading by marker. Stay low. Each word placed far enough apart not to overlap. In that spacing, the team's spirit slipped in, stood, and breathed. Fuel on board, 3 hours 15, High read. Lan reminded. If holding pattern, consider touch and go. Taylor. Copy. He requested priority. Tower answered in static. Priority. Vector, after 4 minutes. 4 minutes that stretched like a river trench. Hold west 4 minutes. After 4, decide, Taylor fixed. The word decide dropped like an anchor. In those 4 minutes, 13 different thoughts ran in 5 heads. What if turn full southeast? What if climb for clear sky? What if detach 1 to scout? What if call Mayday? Each what if was a gate out of the collective. Each carried the allure of grace, maybe brighter that way. Taylor erased them with rhythm and markers. Minute 1, hold, good. Minute 2, left 5. Roll. Not answers, just the only road left when there are no answers. On final, crosswind slammed the nose. Taylor corrected, stitched center line with a short motion. Drop. Good, he allowed wheels to kiss. Reverser, roll. Pump. Sorry, not ready. Tower spilled broken words. In the cabin, no one cursed aloud. They accepted another unfair stanza. Power up, Taylor said, light as a formula. The aircraft rose. They returned to sky, carrying a fatigue without name. From that moment, training absolute safety officially crossed into life and death. Because every following number carried a multiplier called psychology. Fuel draining like an hourglass with half the sand, each grain falling with a private thud in each chest. Silence, once discipline's ally, now a wall behind which doubts ballooned like slow-bursting balloons. Leader, if number 5 began, then stopped. Taylor cut gently. After 5 minutes, speak. He used after like a sedative, not to strip their voice, but to defer it to when nerves could handle. He knew each cut cost another second of trust, but he chose small drops to avoid one collapse. Shore clearer now. Priority main field. Wind shear. Vector 270 and 4. Roger, Taylor repeated. State cost. Weight 4 is 0 fuel. Fly 8 costs 0.8. Pulling math to his side, he ordered water break, a luxury in crisis but effective. Brain needs water to think. Kai sipped small, tongue metallic. He felt Taylor's voice somehow had replaced light, not illuminating but enough to keep hands from groping void. On second final, they saw Poppy ratio right. Wind tossed, but gentler. Drop, Taylor murmured. Wheels touched, pump green. High exhaled. Lan dropped her head for 2 seconds. Kai leaned back, staring at the ceiling, feeling like surfacing from deep water. Hands still shook, unsure if he had escaped death or only delayed it an hour. That night's debrief was unlike others. No one opened with, "Today went well." The chief pointed to the map scarred with detours. "Here is where safety cracked. What did you do?" Taylor listed each marker, each cost, each count. Kai spoke of breathing, of naming fear in his head to shrink it. Lan added, "Set appointments for every hesitation." Hui noted, "State real-time fuel ratios." They built a new toolkit atop the day's debris: frame, marker, cost, rhythm. When the room emptied, Taylor stayed. He pressed 2 fingertips to the table, like a pianist testing a chord. The turning point had happened. An absolutely safe training could and did become life or death within minutes, from just 2 conditions: disorientation and radio loss. He wanted to write that line on the wall, letters so large no one could forget. But instead of writing on walls, he wrote it into his voice. Tomorrow he would speak differently, not with more words, but in the right places. Next morning, sky still gray but wind gentler. Taylor wrote 4 short lines on the whiteboard, no underlines. But urgent. No absolute safety in training, only conditional safety. When instruments conflict, drop the noisy, hold the stable, do not argue with clouds. Every decision must have marker and cost, so humans cling to numbers when minds slip. When radio dies, switch to rhythm, few words even, enough. He turned, looked at cadets. "Yesterday had nothing supernatural," he said calmly. "Only a small chain, compass twitch, radio crackle, clouds drop, fatigue. That chain was enough to turn the absolute safety in manuals into a thin line. We laid a beam across that line. Marker, cost, rhythm. From now, build bridges that way." "On taxi," Kai whispered. "Leader, I thought training was a land without trouble." "Trouble-free is for those who write books," Taylor replied softly. "Our job is knowing when the page ends. And when it ends. Then write on, in rhythm." That afternoon, they flew again. Clouds still thick, sea still wide, compass still a tiny arrow in a vast world. But in each cockpit, beside the checklist, was a new slip of paper, thin, short, 3 lines. Marker, cost, rhythm. And when another yellow glimmer blinked at right 20, number 2 reported, "Land tuned," Taylor said, "Discard, roll, check again in 5. No one felt deprived. No one thought they missed a miracle, for they had learned the most important lesson from yesterday's turning point. The only miracle in aviation is discipline at the right time. At cruise, Kai quietly watched a slit of light break the sky like a golden thread. He recalled his hand trembling as fuel needles fell, recalled the commanders counting minute 1, minute 2, recalled the wheels' kiss on runway soft as lips. He understood why yesterday was called meaning in tragedy, because without tragedy, people forget that safety is a bridge built daily, out of wood, nails, and each other's voices. When they landed, no one cheered. They removed headsets, twisted switches, wrote brief lines. Taylor closed the logbook with 1 sentence not long. "Do not wait for storms to learn swimming, and when swimming, count rhythm." Somewhere offshore, the Bermuda Triangle might still hold unanswered stories. But within their reach, the turning point had been named, and the bridge laid, not to defy fate, but to walk tomorrow with steadier steps. That noon, the sky was like a gray felt scarf spread over the base. No storm, no thunder, just a monotone cloud layer, steady to the point of drowsiness. In front of the hangar, aircraft bodies lay still like silver fish, yellow lights reflecting long streaks across the paint. On the whiteboard in the briefing room, the plan was written compactly so that no one had reason to question. Takeoff, 1410. Enter the area to the north-northeast. Training flight in sweep patterns. Stay low under the clouds. Position report every 15 minutes. Return by 19. Wyness. In the corner of the board, the technician on duty had scribbled a light reminder. Main radio check OK. Backup radio OK. Magnetic compass deviation per chart OK. A row of OKs lined up like pebbles bouncing evenly under a finger. Kai, the youngest trainee, looked at that row of OKs with an oddly pleasant feeling, like standing on a suspension bridge and knowing that the knot at the pier had just been tightened one more loop. He did not think much about whether what stood in front of the cockpit was human or machine. He simply believed that between himself and the sky was an intermediary that had been tested, measured, stamped, signed. Technology is the bridge, he thought, and bridges are meant to be crossed. That belief, from the classroom to the runway, was always smooth as velvet. Commander Charles Taylor entered, a checklist paper clipped under his left hand. He spoke little, exactly the way of someone who had flown enough to know that extra words only weighed the head. As planned, he concluded. If the clouds lower, automatically stay low. If the radio crackles, repeat slowly. If the compass shakes, hold the artificial horizon. No new tricks. Finished, he tapped the tip of the pen against the paper, a firm knock-knock. Like signing an invisible contract. We will do exactly as the book says. On the taxiway, the asphalt vibrated under the wheels like a string. The engine sound rose evenly, pressing lightly against the chest. Salty air slid past the glass edges. Rotate, Taylor said, just one word. The wheels left the ground, the fuselage drew a thin arc upward. Rare sunlight piercing the clouds fell onto the wings, flashing like fish scales. Positive rate. Gear up. Hold 2000, heading 060, economical speed. Short commands, tight, without surplus, like piano keys struck right on beat. Kai told himself, as long as the numbers on the panel behave, the sky will be a problem with a solution. In the training area, everything unfolded like a simulation video. The sweep arcs opened evenly like compass strokes. Lon, navigation, read the waypoint as softly as someone reading poetry. Hui, technician, reported fuel as gently as water flowing through a pipe. On the panel, the compass pointed steady, the needle drawing a bold stroke. The main radio blinked familiar signals, the regular beeps of the coastal station. The artificial horizon lay calm like a white line on a highway. Kai felt embraced by technology, not warm in the sense of touch, but firm in the sense of mathematics, an embrace of numbers. The feeling of safety, Taylor had once said in a lecture, does not necessarily come from flat ground. It comes from knowing that needle is telling the truth. They had trusted that needle, an unconscious trust, built up through simulation hours, tests, signed logbooks, and hundreds of times eyes, hands conversed with the panel. In other words, humans here lived in the language of machines. Occasionally, Taylor reminded them, drink water, steady breathing, focus on the artificial horizon. Words of only 2 or 3 syllables, but enough to pull nerves back in place. By the third sweep, the clouds lowered another step. The cockpit glass tinted a leaden green. Lan leaned into the mic. If northeast winds stronger than forecast, suggest left 3 degrees for 6 minutes. Taylor, copy, his voice steady. The compass obediently glanced left, like a small dog following the leash. And precisely because everything was so obedient, dependence grew softer, invisible. No one saw it. No one felt it tied to their wrists with a thin thread. No one heard it tug gently when they unconsciously turned their eyes to the instruments for the 1000th time that day. Kai leaned back into the seat for a moment of rest and realized something so simple it was frightening. If the panel went dark, he would no longer know what the sky was saying to him. He had never thought of that before, and when the thought passed, he felt a chill down his spine. Immediately, he looked back at the panel, like a child who lost his mother's hand in the market and turned back to grip tighter. Coastal station here, your altitude looks like a drawn line, the operator's voice came. Unexpected warmth in the static. A few trainees chuckled softly. Taylor did not laugh. He only answered, Roger. A short sound like a hammer striking metal. No new tricks, he repeated the morning's line, this time just enough for the formation's ears. And they believed, because between man and machine was a pact. We will fly correctly. You will speak the truth. The sweep closed, opened to the second line, then the third. The fuel needle dropped slowly, into pale yellow, exactly as every chart predicted. Everyone breathed evenly, like one big body with many hearts but a single rhythm. That was the moment technology was not a miracle. It was habit. And habit, for those who fly, is religion. The crack did not come as thunder, but as an itchy tremor. The compass needle suddenly shivered a tick, then stopped. No one said anything. 3 minutes later, the needle shivered another tick, like a fingernail brushed on the glass rim. Right then, the main radio screeched static, then silence for a second slightly too long for nerves used to hearing beep, Roger, copy. Coastal station, leader unreadable, request repeat, Taylor said slowly, keeping his voice flat of any other quality. Silence. Then the wave returned. Distorted like a voice through a mask. East. Drift. Hold. West. Verify. Words falling off like dry petals. Roger, Taylor replied, half a degree firmer than normal, as if to pin down the chair that had just trembled. On the panel, the compass was the definition of frankness. It was the needle that did not know how to lie. From the first sailor who placed it on a deck, to the 21st century trainee sitting behind a cockpit. Yet today, that needle did something almost human. It felt. It shook without reason. It sluggishly returned to the position the crew wanted. Hold artificial horizon, Taylor reminded, pushing the shiver down with one short sentence. If the compass shakes, drop the compass. Kai looked at the artificial horizon, the calm white bar on the black screen, with unspeakable gratitude. When one piece of technology wavers, another must step up as witness, he remembered someone had once said. But the next thought came like a metallic smell. What if that witness wavered too? He shuddered, immediately counting. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. The coastal station returned, clearer this time, like someone who had dropped their breath but picked it up again. Formation. Possible south drift. Suggest correction. West. Stay low. Copy. Left 3 degrees for 6 minutes, Taylor answered, turning the suggestion into a small formula, labeled with time, labeled with cost, all in one sentence. Hold formation. Land nodded, turned the knob. Hui scanned the gauges, reported fuel. 3 hours 45. Everything still in the green zone of the manual, but the gray shadow of doubt had already stepped through the doorway. The compass shook again. This time, the needle paused at the line between 2 ticks. Kai suddenly remembered lectures on local magnetic error, magnetic anomalies, how even a large steel ship passing beneath the sea could pull the gentle needle off by a fraction. Don't trust alone, the teacher had said. Cross-check. Kai cross-checked with eyes. Outside was cloud, a solid mass of color, no landmarks. Cross-check with ears. Radio crackled again. Cross-check with back, the seat still firm. But the heart. The heart cross-checked in its own way. It beat faster. Leader, I see lights right 20, number 3 reported. For the first time, his voice carried a kind of hope like a red ribbon tied to a Christmas gift. Taylor answered, do not break. Verify by frequency. No beacon, Land said after a few seconds scanning. Discard. Return. Taylor cut firmly, his voice slightly blunt like a dull knife. On the net, no one breathed heavily. But in each cockpit, a tiny shard had just dropped into a glass cup. Ting. Technology has the habit of creating the illusion of always right. When it is not right, humans often react like children discovering their father can take the wrong road. Tiny questions sprouted like bean shoots. Is the needle truly wrong, or are my eyes wrong? If the radio says west, but the compass jerks to east, whom to trust? If the artificial horizon stays calm but the plane shakes, what is real? Each question was a thread tugging at the knot between man and machine. Left 12 degrees. Avoid cell ahead. Cost plus 12 minutes plus 0.4%, Land suggested. Take the turn, Taylor decided. Hold formation. Hui read updated numbers. Kai watched the fuel needle drop slowly. In that moment, he saw that needle not as a dead number. It was an hourglass counting how many mistakes he was still allowed, and how many would be enough to get back home. The coastal station called broken. Priority. If. West. Vector. Roger, Taylor replied. Hold West 10. After 10, evaluate. The word evaluate sounded like a seatbelt tightening across the chest. It was not an answer, but a promise. We will not drift forever. In a world where technology had begun to hesitate, the commander's language became the backup technology. Heartbeats in the cockpits slowed half a beat. Then the clouds dropped another level. The compass wobbled like a boat without anchor. The main radio fell silent. The backup radio spoke like an old man's voice, hoarse and short of breath. All those crutches, when braking, made the crew see more clearly the true leg-bearing weight. Dependence. They depended on the ability of the needle, the wave, to tell the truth. And when truth disappeared, they depended on rhythm. Night fell without a bell. Once the horizon was erased, every navigation instrument became the only eyes. Taylor lowered his voice, speaking like a man walking in a dark house. Drop compass. Hold artificial horizon. Keep west as per coastal station mark. Count 5 minutes. His voice stripped of all adjectives, leaving only verbs. Hold, keep, count, like 3 nails driven into wood. 1 minute, he counted. 2 minutes. That silly regularity had a miraculous effect. It replaced the gaps of the radio with rhythm. Rhythm is the simplest technology, older than needles, but effective when all screens go dark. At minute 3, number 5 started, "Leader, if fuel." After 5, "Speak," Taylor cut softly. He did not promise. He made appointments. In darkness, appointments were a form of light. The coastal station returned, temporarily clearer. Priority auxiliary field, pumps under maintenance 15. Tailwind. Lan. Touch and go? Taylor. Copy. Touch and go. No stop. Hold formation. Final stretched long, wind shoved like a big dog playing too rough. Hold center line. Drop. Wheels touched gently. Plane lifted again. Pump. Sorry, not ready, Tower said, the human voice kindly standing in the network of failing machines. Technology could apologize for people. People could apologize for technology. No one cursed. They turned back to the sea, fuel down another tick. Taylor exhaled into the mic, very softly. Hold rhythm. 2 words heavy like a hand laid on the shoulder. In the thick sky, technology began to bear human qualities. Tired, hoarse, trembling, missing appointments. Facing such a human, the crew learned to practice interpersonal skills with machines. Do not be harsh. Do not expect miracles. Do not abandon. And always have a backup plan to coexist. Drop compass. Hold artificial horizon. Main radio dead. Switch to backup. Coastal station crackles. Set time markers. Fuel stretched. State cost of every turn so the brain does not invent stories. Leader, I see lights right 20. Steadier than last time, number 2 said, trying to hide eagerness. Do not break. Verify by frequency, Taylor recited like a mantra against impulse. No beacon, Lon concluded again. Discard, return. Check again in 5 minutes. 3 short sentences turned desire into habit. That was how humans disciplined humans when technology tempted with illusions. High reported, fuel on board, 2 hours 50. From now on, each minute was not just a unit of time. It was a coin falling evenly out of a pocket. Taylor labeled each coin. Wait 4 minutes, fuel 0. Fly 8, fuel plus 0.8. Choose wait. Numbers soothed better than any speech. They told the brain, we know what we are paying for this choice. And when the brain knows the price, it stops weaving tragedies. The coastal station finally gave vector for main field. Wind shear at runway end. Hold rhythm, Taylor said. He did not describe the wind, did not explain crosswind technique. He just held rhythm, like an old mechanic listening to an engine knock and tapping along until it calmed. Drop. Good. Wheels touched, reverser, pump screen. High exhaled loudly. Land loosened her wrist. Taylor still kept his flat tone. Hold positions. He knew too much relief could also break people. That night, in debrief, the chief did not ask why was the compass wrong, did not search for a single culprit. He only tapped the board, where Taylor had written 3 large words: marker, cost, rhythm. In darkness, humans do not defeat nature with the number of devices, Taylor said, voice not proud, only tired but warm. We survived because we knew how to shift from trusting one instrument to trusting multiple things at once. Trust in the appointment, in the cost to pay, in the steady rhythm. When technology collapses, humans must build bridges. Kai sat silently, his fingers brushing sweat down from his neck strap, thinking. Turns out learning to fly is not learning to control machines. It is learning to live with machines when they are tired. When the room held only the smell of stale coffee, Kai approached the board. Sir, he hesitated. When the compass shook, I suddenly felt empty, as if the sky had gone dark. Taylor looked at him, smiled very faintly. It's all right. That is when humans switch on the light. And sometimes the light is voice. Voice? Yes. Saying hold, count, appointment. Sounds boring, but it keeps people close together. Closer means fewer mistakes. Kai smiled, a crooked smile from fatigue. For the first time, he understood the best technology the crew had that night was a steady voice. One day later, the clouds still there, the wind still salty, the radios outside still likely to cough. But on the soft SOP board, 4 new lines appeared. Do not trust a single channel. Compass speaks. Cross-check with artificial horizon. With coastal station, with counting rhythm. Set a marker for every decision. After 5 minutes, after 10, we reevaluate, to give the mind a hook. State cost with orders. Every detour, every turn has a clear bill. The brain imagines less. When technology falters, use rhythm. Few words, steady, on time. Voice is the backup device. They took off again. The sky was no prettier, but in each cockpit a bridge had been prepared, pieced together from marker cost rhythm. When the radio crackled, they did not panic. When the compass shook, they did not scream. When strange lights glared at right 20, they said, verify by frequency, before the heart could pull the hand off course. Dependence on technology did not disappear. It was distributed, so if one piece broke, the whole bridge did not collapse. At cruising altitude, Kai looked at the panel with new feeling. Less illusion, more respect. He understood technology was not divine. It was a companion that must be treated like a person. Listen to it, but also question it, remind it, check it, and above all, not burden it with expectations humans themselves must bear. The compass could shake, the radio could fall silent, the coastal station could miss an appointment. But if humans still had marker cost rhythm, they could still go home. That afternoon, when the wheels touched down, no one cheered. They removed headsets, folded logbooks, signed pens, shoulders dropping one notch. Taylor shut down the plane, left the seat, and before walking past the nose, he knocked 2 knuckles on the metal skin. Knock knock, like an old reassuring habit. In the log, he wrote one short line, not beautiful but firm. Trust machines, but build bridges among machines, and when the bridges tremble, use rhythm. And that is the final meaning of point 2. Dependence on technology. Not a hymn of praise, not an accusation. It is a mature commitment. We will rely on technology, but not abandon ourselves to it. We will let it guide, but not hand over our souls. We will believe it speaks truth, and when it whispers, I may be wrong, We will be calm enough to cross-check, set markers, state costs, then build one more bridge out of our very voices. The sky may still be gray. The sea may still be black. But with such bridges, the journey will be less hopeless. The sea wind blew the rows of coconut trees leaning by the runway, the smell of salt and engine oil blending into an air that was both awakening and stinging to the eyes. In the hangar, yellow lights poured down on the aircraft bodies like honey, glistening on the silver paint. Before takeoff, everything was as per the manual. Shortened checklist, clear assignments, common frequency already tested, compass calibrated according to the deviation chart. Seen from the hallway, this was just a training flight so ordinary it seemed boring. A few Roger, a few copy, a few open-close hatches, tapping on latches. But under that shell of discipline, the human body had already begun speaking its own languages. Kai, the youngest trainee, noticed a faint metallic taste on his tongue. It was the sign he always felt when he had slept little. The night before, he had tossed and turned, thinking about the final approach yesterday being slightly off the center line. No one scolded, but the image of poppy lights red, red, white, white kept looping in his head. He knew he was still fine, but the body did not obey reason. Heartbeat a bit high, palms dry, the back of the neck slightly tense. He drank a sip of water, felt his throat warm. Then locked the harness, inhaled deeply as if pulling a blanket neatly over a bed. Commander Charles Taylor entered the cockpit, his deep voice just enough to fill the narrow space. As planned, keep low under the clouds. Compass is the footing, artificial horizon is the railing, no new tricks. He said so because he understood. The newest thing in the sky was often the most dangerous, especially when humans carried inside them a vibration very human, emotion. The aircraft rolled out onto the runway. The wind slapped a few raindrops like needles against the glass. Rotate, Taylor said. The wheels left the ground. All of Kai's senses suddenly opened wide. The engine sound filling his chest, the slight vibration at the pedals, the glow of panel lights shining into his eyes. When the nose lifted, his inner ear, the tiny labyrinthine organ, sent an opposite signal. You are tilting. That is what many pilots call the leans, a prank of biology. The body feels the opposite of what the eyes see. Kai fixed his eyes on the artificial horizon, saw the white bar straight. He knew he was flying level, but for a brief moment, the body lured the brain. Trust me, we are tilting right. He gripped tighter for a beat, reminded himself silently. Trust the straight, not the dizziness. Entering the area, the clouds lowered like a thick curtain. Visibility shrank. Sound suddenly seemed louder, like hearing your own breath in a quiet room. Lan read waypoints. Hoy reported fuel. Taylor gave short copy. Kai's heart slowed thanks to that voice, but his body gave off another language. Stiff shoulders, hot neck, collar rubbing lightly against the skin, bringing a small, persistent irritation. Such petty sensations, on the ground, would not matter. But in the sky, where a few degrees could turn into dozens of nautical miles after an hour, an itching collar could become the source of an impatient decision. The first sweep closed like a compass arc, everything by the book. The second, the compass needle flicked once, then stilled. Taylor said, drop the compass if it jumps. Hold artificial horizon. His voice not loud, but sharpened slightly on drop, like someone cutting a rope starting to tangle into the propeller. Kai was grateful for that sentence because his body had just sent another prank. When the plane passed through a pocket of cold air, his stomach dropped a beat. It was the same beat as fear. And the brain, loyal to instinct, tried to label. Something is wrong. That label, if misplaced, would spread like mold on bread. Drink water, Taylor said. That order sounded like a luxury, but Kai understood. Water was the anchor for mind and hand. He sipped. The dry lips eased. The metallic taste lessened. Those bodily signals, dryness, heat, stiffness, were the soil where fear could take root. On good soil, roots weak. On bad soil, roots spread. By the third sweep, clouds closed tighter. Darkness reached into the cabin like an uninvited guest. From then on, light was no longer a friend. It was a measure of loneliness. The red-green wingtip lights of number 2, number 3 blinked steadily, but Kai felt his heart beating to another rhythm. Faster, shorter. His inner ear played another prank. For a few seconds, when the plane tilted lightly then leveled, his brain misread it as a big roll. He wanted to correct. His hand twitched. But the artificial horizon coldly said, "Don't." Just then, Taylor's voice laid another stone. Easy. Hold. 2 words like a spell to exorcise biology's betrayal. In all the lessons, people spoke little about how the body and mind are not always on your side. But today, right now, Kai understood. Humans are fragile not for lack of knowledge, but because the body knows how to lie very well. It whispered into the ear with dizziness, with dry mouth, with eye sting, with hot neck. It pulled attention away from the artificial horizon, away from the voice, back to the irritated skin. And if he did not silence it, it would redraw the map of the sky into the shape of a collar. Left 3 degrees for 6 minutes, Land suggested. Copy, Taylor replied. The plane banked lightly. Kai inhaled, counted 4, exhaled, counted 4. This time, the prank leans still came, but shorter. He thought of what his old instructor said. Trust the straight, not the dizziness. He felt he was doing right. But at the same time, he realized another thing. I am not stronger than anyone. I just have someone speaking in my ear at the right time. The fragility of man was showing, not in some grand tragedy, but in a chain of small sensations knitted into an invisible net. And that net, without voices, numbers, and breathing rhythm, would strangle a flyer before the fuel ever ran out. The radio wave faded for a beat longer than usual. In the cabin, only the wind rushing past the fuselage and the steady hum of the engine remained, like a ceiling fan in a hospital ward at midnight. Time, usually a straight line, now stretched like chewing gum. Coastal station, repeat, Taylor called. Voice flat as water before any stone is thrown. Silence, then a string of distorted sounds. West. Hold. Verify. He answered, Roger, then told the team quietly, set marker 5 minutes. The word marker was a wooden post in the current. It gave the swimmer a place to hold. But even with a post, the mind could still build a warped mirror. In that mirror, the world bent according to fear. Kai felt it when he looked at the fuel needle dropping slowly. Suddenly, slow no longer meant safe. It became shortage. For a moment, his brain drew a picture. Sky stretching endless, then bottomless black ocean. Time stretching until, leader, he opened his mouth to ask, then shut it. Ask what? Ask, will we live? A stupid question, but friendly to warped mirrors. Number 3 whispered, I see lights right 20, steadier than before. Hope is the other face of fear. When afraid, people begin to see lights everywhere. Taylor cut like a surgeon cutting thread. Do not break. Verify by frequency. Land turned knobs, said, no beacon. Discard. Return. 3 short sentences like 3 hammer strikes, nailing back a board wanting to drift. In Kai's ears, they sounded curt. In his stomach, they felt comforting, like a mother telling a child not to go outside in a storm. Fog of mind spread. Are we flying straight? Is it sea or sky tilting? If the compass shakes, whom to trust? Kai felt suspended between 2 cloud layers, upper of information, lower of intuition. In between, humans were paper boats. The more he tried to reason, the bigger the warped mirrors swelled. Lessons on sensory illusions flooded back. Coriolis making head spin when glancing quickly at gauges. Graveyard spiral, when not trusting the artificial horizon, pulling the plane into a death orbit. Concepts that once seemed distant, but today, one careless beat was enough to turn textbooks into funerals. Count, Taylor said. Minute 1, minute 2. Steady, slow, emotionless. Among warped mirrors, the counting was a flat mirror. It gave back the true face. Time, heading, speed, altitude. Kai looked at the artificial horizon. It had no eyes, no heart. But now, its indifference was kindness. He held on to that indifference like grasping the cold railing of a staircase in a burning house. Fatigue arrived very human. Heavy wrists, aching shoulders, dry eyes wanting to squint. Fatigue tempted people with comfort. Drop rhythm, leave the straight, believe a slight tilt. Taylor foresaw that in the trainees, so he ordered, "Water break 15 seconds," a small luxury in the sky. Kai sipped, felt a mild irritation dissolve, less bitterness in the mouth, less heat in the back. The body, soothed, stopped shouting lies into the ear. The coastal station returned, reported priority to auxiliary field, pumps under maintenance 15. "Touch and go, no stop," Taylor said. He dodged 2 warped mirrors at once. The mirror, false hope, pump ready, then not. And the mirror, waiting idle, standing still for refuel, fuel draining morale. Long final, crosswind gust, hold center line, drop. Wheels touched. Plane lifted again. "Pump not ready," Tower apologized. Kai's heart slipped a beat. The mirror, unfair. That the universe was cheating, flashed. Taylor cut it off with 2 words. "Roger, off axis." There was no room for sulking in the sky. Back over the sea, clouds thick as coal dust. Human fragility revealed itself in how they stayed silent. No one wanted to be the first to ask what if, for fear of seeming weak. But silence, too, was a warped mirror. It magnified whispers in the head, turning them into loudspeakers. Taylor knew that, so he played the game state cost. Left 12 cost 0.4%. Choose turn. Wait 4 cost 0. Fly 8 cost 0.8%. Choose wait. Numbers did not cure anxiety but made it less wild. People fear the nameless. When there is cost, there is path. Leader, if at the marker we still don't see land? Kai could not hold back, voice thin as thread. At marker, evaluate. Not before, Taylor said. He forbade the formation from opening the door to the room named Worst Future. Because in that room, everyone became lead actor of a tragedy scripted by themselves. And fragility is like that. It writes its own death script when conditions are vague enough. 10 minutes, then 15. Finally, vector for main field arrived. "Wind shear at runway end," Tower said. "Hold rhythm," Taylor replied. 40 seconds later, wheels touched. Reverser. Pumps green. Lan exhaled. Hui shook his wrist. Kai closed his eyes 2 seconds, saw the warped mirror in his head crack like glass tapped. In the shards, he saw a lesson clear and ruthless. Humans fragile not only because nature attacks, they are fragile because of the mirrors they build inside. Debrief night. Room bright white, smell of cold coffee and fresh paper. On the board, the flight path redrawn with markers, detours, straight segments, time marks scribbled at the edges. The chief asked, not in an interrogating tone, but like a doctor taking history. "When radio cut, what was in your head?" They were silent for seconds, then answers dropped, scattered, fragments of honesty. "I thought of fuel first. I thought of the lights at right 20. I was afraid, silly, but I feared the sea. I just wanted to break off a bit." Taylor did not intervene. He let the eyes touch, listen to their clang, 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 the melody of fragility. Then he stood, wrote 4 words, body, mirror, rhythm, cost. "We are fragile in 4 places," he said. Body, tired, dizzy, dry. Mirror, imagination inflated. Rhythm, brittle when panicked. Cost, without cost, the brain invents. He looked at each person. Courage in this context is not no fear. Courage is knowing why you fear, naming it, then placing it in a frame. Kai raised his hand. "If someone fears for an unnamed reason, then borrow someone else's name," Taylor answered, not smiling. "Call it the leans, graveyard spiral, Coriolis, sleep deprivation. Anything with a name has a countermeasure." He pointed to the board. "Leans, trust artificial horizon, Coriolis. Don't glance too quick. Graveyard. Set marker. Hold rhythm. Sleep deprivation. Drink water. Talk less. Decide by procedure. Those lines turned fog into a map. In some young eyes, a small light appeared, not bright, but steady. The chief tapped his pen. When the right 20 light seemed steadier, why not break? Taylor. Because steady is an adjective of feeling, not of signal. Because the triangle between man-machine team tilts if one man crowns his feeling into truth. He paused half a second, then lowered his voice. And because courage is not a solo, courage is standing in the orchestra and holding rhythm, even when you want to play solo. Kai propped his chin, looked at the flight path. He saw the detour around the cell, saw the 5-minute marker, saw the note cost 0.4% beside a small arrow. Those things, markers, notes, numbers, were plain. But precisely because plain, they kept people from doing something stupid from emotion. He remembered the moment his hand twitched to correct according to dizziness. Without the voice easy, hold, he might have dragged the formation into an invisible spiral. From then, he understood the thin line between courage and recklessness lay in one point, whether there is a frame or not. After debrief, everyone left. Taylor stayed, erased the board, wrote one small line under the 4 words: body, mirror, rhythm, cost. That line was, speak out. He circled it. Speak out meant what? It meant the tired one says, I need water. The dizzy one says, I need a marker. The anxious one says, give me a number. Without speaking, fragility lives like bacteria in the dark, multiplying. Late night, the base was silent. Kai went to the seawall, looked at the red lighthouse flashing far away. The salty wind stung his eyes. He remembered his first night flight, when the instructor forced him to turn off all cockpit lights for a minute. For what, sir? To know the sky doesn't speak human language, you must self-translate. When compass shook, radio cut. Sea black as ink, self-translate was not inventing stories. Self-translate was swapping imagination for counting rhythm, swapping intuition for numbers, swapping proud silence for the words, I am afraid. Only then does fragility have the chance to stand beside you, not opposite. Next day, they took off early. The sky still gray, but the wind gentle. Kai carried a small note stuck on the panel's edge. Body, mirror, rhythm, cost, speak out. On the first sweep, he whispered to himself, stiff shoulders, relax, collar rub, pull down, breathing fast, inhale 4. On the second sweep, compass shook. He held artificial horizon. On the third, his eyes saw a streak of light right 20. He reported, land scanned, no beacon. He discarded. All like scale practice. Not beautiful, not flashy, but nourishing the hands. On the way back, Taylor opened the common frequency. Tomorrow weather worse. No one is allowed to be a hero. Our hero is something very thin. Discipline. The whole team. Roger. In the cabin, Kai smiled. He looked at the small note on the edge, saw the 5 words turned into 5 pins. And when the wheels touched the runway, he knew. Fragility had not vanished. It had been trained. There are days. The sea breathes calm, clouds pale. Winds retreat afar. On those days, humans think themselves strong. But the lesson of fragility is not for gentle days. It is for when compass shakes, radio distorts, lights at right 20 gleam like the eye of a giant fish under the Black Sea. It is for when the inner ear says tilt, the artificial horizon says straight, the heart says run, and the commander's voice says hold. After those days, the team wrote another page of soft SOP, not to hang pretty on a wall, but to tuck into flight suits. Recognize body. Dry. Drink. Stiff. Relax. Dizzy. Look at artificial horizon. Fatigue. Ask for marker. Break warped mirrors. Name illusions. Use numbers to chase imagination. Share instead of swallowing. Hold rhythm. When radio cuts, count. When afraid, speak slowly. When hot, pause a beat before giving orders. State cost. Every turn has a bill. With a bill, there is less crying. Speak out. The phrase, "I'm afraid," does not weaken the team. It makes the team more human. One afternoon, before closing the flight log, Taylor wrote a short line, as he always did after memorable days. Humans are fragile, so we fly together. That was not poetry. It was a formula for living. Fragility is real. Therefore, formation, procedure, counting rhythm, numbers, voices, all exist to stand on the human side. Not to prove anyone strong, but to help everyone have enough strength to fly through the speechless sky. At the seawall, the lighthouse blinked red steadily. Kai sat on the railing, exhaled a thin breath. He remembered the counting rhythm, remembered his hands trembling, remembered the moment he wanted to believe the right 20 light, remembered the commander's voice. Discard a return, check later. He did not tell himself, "I am strong now." He only told himself, "I have learned how to treat fragility." And tomorrow, when weather is worse, he will tape that small note again. Read those 5 words, open radio, speak little but firm, hold artificial horizon, set markers, state costs, and, if needed, speak. Leader? The sea wind from afar tilted the rows of coconut trees, the sound of leaves rubbing against each other like coarse fabric. On the common frequency, a beep opened the channel and ended. Charles Taylor's voice came in like hammering the first nail. Deep, short, no extra words. Hold formation. Spacing 2. Do not change altitude on your own. Do not separate wings. Heading, EO6 EO. 4, Roger, replied, so even it sounded like one person. Below, the Florida coast retreated into a thin line. Ahead, gray clouds thick like a whetstone surface. From afar, the formation was 5 bright dots, connected in a clean diagonal. From within, each cockpit was its own world of breathing, sweat, and little clocks that never closed their eyes. Kai, the youngest of the team, fixed his eyes on the artificial horizon, back straight as a bowstring. He knew exactly which angle the left wingtip of number 2 touched the edge of his window would be perfect. He knew how long after each left 5 of the commander, until the return. He also knew what bound him now was not only command, but the invisible pull of formation. It pressed down on his shoulders with a weight just right. Not crushing, but heavy enough that he did not dare step out. Left 5. Return. Hold. Taylor beat the rhythm like a conductor. 5 aircraft tilted at the same angle, then straightened in the same beat. The atmosphere brushed past the wings, trembling very lightly, like an old craftsman tapping to test a metal drum. The coastal station cut in with a short praise, altitude like a line, then fell silent. A few young mouths smiled faintly. Taylor did not smile. He feared laughter would soften the edge of the word hold. In a sky without landmarks, formation was the map. It gave a sense of belonging, like armor made from habit. When you were in the right place, the lead ship sucked in the dirty air. You lay in the clean stream. When you were half a wingspan off, no aerodynamics professor was needed. The formation itself taught. Your nose quivered, your body jolted upward. A reminder by the wind. Return to your place. No voice was as effective as that tremor. Clouds lowered gradually. The instrument panel cast a thin green glow like algae on faces. Report altitude, Taylor said. Numbers dropped evenly like raindrops on a tin roof. Hold, he concluded. In another cockpit, number 3's hand touched the mic lightly, then withdrew, just to feel the cold touch remind him that his mouth was not yet allowed to speak the fear inside. In formation, silence was also duty, a golden flicker at right 20. Kai saw it, then doubted his own eyes. A ship's light? Cloud reflection? He wanted to push the mic, but already in his ears he heard Taylor's voice from training. Do not separate. Do not stare at what you cannot name. Follow the man in front. He stopped, swallowed a little disappointment, then rested his forehead on the glass, watching number 2's wingtip blink red-green in rhythm. Leader, I see a light right 20, number 2 reported. Voice kept neutral. Verify by frequency, Taylor. No beacon, Lan, the navigator, replied after a few seconds. Discard. Return, Taylor concluded. 3 words like wooden wedges sealing every leak of imagination. The formation flowed west through a slice of thick cloud, the ocean below black as ink. Kai inhaled 4, exhaled 4. In formation, one learned to synchronize biological rhythm with command rhythm. Each hold was a heartbeat dropping into a groove. Each left 5 was a shoulder relaxing at the right angle. And strangely, the longer he stayed in that rhythm, the more he believed staying together was right. Not because all were right, but because being wrong together killed less than being wrong alone. Drink water, Taylor said, like a small grace for the body. Inside that order was an old lesson. Thirst and fear share the same neural path. Quench thirst, fear shrinks. Kai sipped, felt the tongue less bitter, hand calmer, jaw less stiff. He looked out, saw 5 aircraft as one creature with many eyes, many hearts. Each wingtip light blinked 1 beat as the creature breathed. And he, only 1 cell in that body. Outside, all was calm to the point of boredom. Inside, the invisible rope tightened. No one said it, but all understood. Formation was both armor and shackle. To take it off was immediately cold, and possibly death. To wear it long, at times, suffocating. The coastal station cut in with a string mixed with noise. East. Drift. Hold west. Then fell mute. Taylor, Roger, slowly. Compensate left 3 degrees for 6 minutes. Hold low. The formation tilted. The flight path drew a new thread in the sky, neat. On that thread, each one's loneliness was wrapped, labeled, together. Twilight came with a rasp of clouds. Darkness poured down like spilled oil. Wingtip lights blinked steadily, turning the formation into an embrace vague yet tangible. Each blink was, I am still here. I am still in place. That signal soothed nerves like a hand on the back in a cold night. The pack was born for nights like these. Hold west 10. After 10, evaluate, Taylor said. The word evaluate was an invisible hook. It caught all thoughts rushing to the future. Will fuel be enough? Is Florida behind us? Pulling them back to the present. In the pack, to be promised is to live 1 more segment. Number 5 gently opened internal comms. Leader, fuel on board, 3 hours 20. Copy, state cost of all changes, Taylor replied. Avoiding cell ahead, left turn, plus 112 minutes, plus 0.4%. Penetrate, plus 2% or N10. Land, choose turn, hold formation, Taylor. The pack liked numbers because numbers had no smell of fear. When chased by worry breathing down your neck, one exaggerated immediately. But plow 0.4% did not say save or die. It said, pay this much. That clarity was the oil greasing the gears of the collective. Another flicker at right 20, steadier this time. Number 2 spoke softly, trying to keep intuition below emotion. Leader, light right 20, steady. Do not separate, verify by frequency, Taylor. No beacon. Land. Discard, return, recheck in 5 hours. Taylor. The pack had immunity against individual instincts. This immunity was built by short sentences. Frighteningly, if not injected regularly, immunity became allergy. People in the pack would go blind to real signs, but tonight was not yet that time. Taylor's short sentences still had force. The compass jerked. Backup radio sounded like an old man wheezing. The wind scraping along the fuselage lasted 1 beat longer. Kai felt the leans, the prank of the inner ear, touch his neck. He wanted to correct, but the artificial horizon said firmly, don't. The pack saved him by tying him to collective discipline. To be tied, often, was to be saved. Count 5, Taylor said. Minute 1, minute 2. Rhythm was the rope tying down balloons of imagination. Minute 3. Kai felt himself less trembling. Minute 4, number 3 stopped staring at right 20 light. Minute 5, Lon wrote the mark. An orchestra had kept tempo, but the pack also had a dark side. It hid pain. Leader, number 5's voice cracked then stopped. Speak, Taylor. I fear the sea. A faint laugh passed on the internal frequency, then died. Shame also a kind of noise. Taylor cut. Normal. Hold rhythm. The word normal opened an exit for fear. A pack that wants to live long must learn to accept fear. Otherwise, it will crack from inside, where fear is pressed to black. When Vector to Auxiliary Field came, the tower apologized. Pump maintenance 15. Touch and go, no stop, Taylor. Long final. Wind shear, bit at wingtips at runway end. Hold center line. Drop. Wheels touched, aircraft lifted. In one cockpit, number 2 muttered, "Crazy indeed," then gave a thin laugh. No one joined. The pack avoided sarcasm because it dropped rhythm. In the sky, dropped rhythm meant dropped wings. Back to the sea, fuel dropped another notch. Numbers still within calculation, but psychology began to skew. In the pack, egos evaporated. People no longer thought I, only we. This was the strength of the pack. It pulled all eyes to the same direction, turned 5 heads into one all-seeing eye. But if that eye was misaimed by a wrong marker, an estimated cost, an evaluation set too far, the whole pack would go wrong. Going together is right was the most dangerous phrase when no one took responsibility for a mismark. Leader, Kai said, suddenly wanting to test the elasticity of the invisible rope. What if detach one to scout? No, Taylor cut like a koan. Night, radio broken, compass jumping. To detach is death. Hold formation. The answer left no gray. Kai bit his lip, felt both hollow and eased. Hollow because instinct was suppressed, eased because rule remained intact. The pack lived on rules that sounded dull, but saved lives. The strange thing was, the longer in formation, the more he felt himself disappear. Not vanish from seat, from panel, but vanish from decision. Hands followed rhythm. Eyes followed lights. Ears followed voice. Head followed marker. At one moment, he wanted to shout, "I!" But in the pack, shouting "I" was breaking tempo. He swallowed it, turned into a breath. A glow brighter than before flashed at the edge of clouds. In Kai's pupils, it grew larger than reality. In the pack, it shrank. That reduction of amplitude, shaking off illusion, was the advantage of the pack. But if that glow was real, it too would shrink. And they could miss it. The pack was not perfect. It was only conditionally safe. The condition, the one holding tempo, must be sober enough to sometimes break tempo. Discard. Return. Recheck in 5, Taylor said. All eyes turned back to the artificial horizon. The formation again became armor, neither tight nor loose, wrapped just right around the chest. Night late. The horizon erased. Outside radio silent like water when port lights off. Suppression began to have smell. Salt, hot rubber, damp metal. It seeped from hidden places, neck tendons, finger webs, behind ears. Report altitude, Taylor said. Numbers fell evenly. Hold. Kai inhaled short. In his head, 2 voices fought. Believe. Don't believe. He had studied leans and graveyard spiral, had memorized trust artificial horizon. But there were seconds when the body, like a naughty child, tugged mother's sleeve. Look right, there's a light. He did not look. He tied himself to the sentence, do not separate. The cost of suppression was pain. The more people suppressed, the heavier the air. In number 3's cockpit, sweat trickled down his neck. He clenched jaw until temples ached. In number 5's, knees trembled lightly. He pressed thighs against seat edge. In number 2's, left hand gripped stick too hard, knuckle joints white. No one spoke. Shared silence was a blanket over embers. It did not extinguish fire, but kept it from wind. Taylor, as if smelling smoke, dropped rhythm water. Water break 15, hold formation. The order sounded luxurious but was timely watering. Kai sipped. Number 3 loosened jaw, number 2 eased hand. In human organization, suppression must have vents, otherwise it bursts. Leader, number 5, keyed mic, hoarse voice. Sorry, but fuel. State numbers, Taylor. 2 hours 40. Copy. State cost, weight 4, 0, fly 8, plus 0.8%. Choose weight. When worry turned to number, it lost power. Numbers gave people something to do. Record, calculate into chart, compare with return path. Worry only had one job. Worry. The coastal station returned, luck like a pat on the shoulder. Priority main field. Wind shear runway end. Hold rhythm, Taylor. And he did not describe shear, did not teach technique when hands were wet. He knew, in this hour, long theory was oil. Short, steady, enough, final. Wind slammed. Hold center line, drop. Wheels touched. The light version of alive. Reverser, pump screen. No one cheered. The pack did not celebrate long. Long cheer made rhythm fall after. Taylor let them breathe exactly 3 beats then. Hold station. His dictionary had few adjectives, many verbs. Because verbs kept bodies busy, emotions less free to break. Debrief. Taylor wrote 4 words on board. Bind, rhythm, vent, number. Bind. Rules keep formation like seatbelts. Rhythm. Replace all gaps when radio cut. Vent. Water break. Admit fear. Speak little but true. Number. All turns have cost. With cost, acceptance comes. In formation, he concluded, suppression is inevitable, but suppress to get through, not to explode. Kai sat behind, heart strange. He knew tonight he had swallowed instincts, turning to look at glow, moving hands with leans, asking endlessly, what if? He also knew, if alone, he might have plunged into graveyard spiral. So what was the cost of staying? Muscle pain, dry throat, unsaid, I'm afraid. The gain? Still sitting here, writing in the flight log. Back in his room, he opened his small notebook, wrote under the line, body, mirror, rhythm, cost, speak out. Stay to return. He underlined. Staying, not because of fear, staying because of wanting to return. That sentence, if spoken aloud, smelled of the pack. But without the pack, tonight he would have become a glow swallowed by black. Next morning, the sky no bluer. Clouds still like damp blanket. Radio still could cough. Compass still could shake like a sick man. But on the soft SOP board, there was an added short paragraph. Packed of the pack. Do not separate without level 1 signal, beacon, navigation station. Every turn must have marker and cost. Speak so the pack shares, no one bears alone. When radio cuts, turn radio into rhythm. Few words, steady, on time. Suppression must have vent, water, admit fear, breathe by order. Stay to return, the only reason right enough to endure pain without bursting. They took off again in the afternoon. Another golden flicker at right 20. Number 2 reported, land scanned. No beacon. Taylor said, discard. Return. Recheck 5-0. No one disappointed. No one aggressive. The formation was like a suspension bridge. Shaking, yes. Collapsing, no. Because every cable, rule, rhythm, numbers, the word normal, shared the load, not letting any spot bear all. When wheels touched runway at day's end, no fireworks, no embraces. Only the sound of exhaling together, small but steady, and pens signing flight logs. Taylor closed the log with one line, few words but heavy. Formation is armor, do not wear to suffocation. Formation is bridge, do not run rhythm. Kai folded his cap, stepped out to the seawall. Lighthouse in the distance blinked red, steady as heartbeat. He remembered the moment his hand wanted to pull with dizziness. Remembered the commander's hold. Remembered the feeling of staying even when wanting to go. He understood. The pack was not an insult. It was the social technology of small creatures before the vast sky. It gave strength, rhythm, numbers, rules. It also demanded a price, suppression, pain, silence. To pay or not, the decision belonged to the one holding tempo, and to each who stayed. That night, before lights out, he wrote one more line on the page margin. If forced to choose between right alone and safe together, choose to return. Then tomorrow debate right-wrong. Somewhere far offshore, the ocean was still black as ink, and the sky still hid deceiving glimmers. But with a pack that knew how to stay, how to suppress rightly, and how to vent rightly, the way home, though thin, was still enough for 5 shadows to glide through the night, beat by beat, to destination. That afternoon, the sea was calm as paper, but the sky was not. Clouds wove a dark gray fabric stretched from the horizon straight to the nose of the aircraft, smooth as wet silk, pushing all boundaries between land, sky, water back into a murky realm. In the headset, Charles Taylor's voice was still steady, short, and precise like a metronome. Hold formation. Left correction 3 degrees. Evaluate after 5 minutes. Orders as familiar as the sound of knocking on the door in the morning. Hear and do. No need to think. But within that familiarity, strangeness was quietly creeping in. Number 2 was the first to notice. Not with eyes, but with the vague sense of a body long in flight. The formation tilted very slightly, half a wingspan, enough for the wake vortex of the plane ahead to nip lightly at his nose. He corrected reflexively, then exhaled. Small matter. But the second small matter came right after. The coastal radio dropped out for a long beat, like a speaker suddenly swallowing mid-sentence, leaving behind a gap where the stream of speculation swelled. Coastal station, request repeat. West, confirm. Unclear. Roger. The cluster of words fell unbalanced, not enough to build a wall against the Black Sea. Consensus, if seen from the control tower, was still aligned. 5 planes weaving a clean line on the radar screen. Speed, altitude, heading, all as in the manual. But inside, where the yardsticks lay in breath rhythm, hand movements, and eye glances, consensus had shifted state. It was no longer a solid block. It had become a thin mist spread over each man. And when a light breeze blew, a compass twitch, a passing cloud, the mist quivered, evaporating into invisible question marks. Leader, fuel on board. 3 hours 45, Hui reported. A good number, a sufficient number, a number that pulled a thin blanket over the nerves. But right beneath that blanket, a small if sprouted. If another detour. If waiting vector 8 minutes. If right 20 light was real. Each if was a drop of water seeping into wood, not collapsing the house immediately, but enough for tomorrow to smell damp. Taylor knew he was walking on a suspension bridge whose cables were words. He tried to keep every word under 5 syllables. Hold, return, discard, mark. He knew long words broke rhythm, but he also knew this: rhythm did not save all. Rhythm only slowed the fall, and consensus, once falling, would fall like mist, hard to see, hard to catch. Kai, youngest of the crew, sensed the change in his own way. Collar chafing, nape warming, and a nagging hunch that people were agreeing less inside, though mouths still said, Roger. He once thought consensus was something people reached by reason, debate, weighing, choosing. In the sky, among thick clouds and broken radios, he realized a paradox. Consensus was a habit. It lived by repetition of rhythm. When rhythm bent, habit broke, consensus cracked. Light right 20, number 3 reported, this time trying to keep his voice neutral, but the end syllable carried a small hook named hope. Verify by frequency, Lon, the navigator, turned knobs. No beacon. Discard, return, Taylor. 4 sentences like 4 paper clips pinning the map's edges, keeping the north wind from tearing it away. The team broke the illusion into small bits, swallowed dry. But the aftertaste of illusion remained. Instead of all looking at one place, each began looking at his own version of Florida inside his head. The shared map cracked into 5 fragments, very faintly, and that crack was consensus slipping off the wings. At the end of the cloud avoidance turn, Taylor set a marker. After 10, evaluate. The team murmured, Roger. Evaluate sounded like a polite appointment, but also like a truce between belief and doubt. For 10 minutes, they flew like a body with many hearts. Each heart kept rhythm for another. For 10 minutes, the mist seemed to settle. But mist never disappeared. It only waited for another gust. That gust came as a compass tremor. Not strong, just like a fingernail scratching glass. Enough for the mist to shake again. Discard compass if it jumps. Trust artificial horizon. Taylor, the words discard, trust, were like two stakes driven into muddy ground. The crew clung on, one pulling another, gaining a few more yards of shore. But where was shore? That question, once a coordinate problem, suddenly carried the scent of a rumor. They went on. Consensus, once stone, had become wax. Warmed, it melted. Cooled, it hardened. And tonight, whose hand was cooling for whom? When the coastal radio fell silent the third time, the sky was black like thin mud. No horizon. No star allowed through velvet cloud. Hold west 10. After 10, decide, Taylor said. For the first time, he used decide instead of evaluate. Decide was placing a chair. It told the crew, a place to sit will exist after 10 minutes. But 10 minutes later, for a weary mind stretched like a winter afternoon. In that stretch, crisis of trust did not come with the question, do we trust the leader? But with much smaller questions. Do I trust that I'm breathing deep enough? Do I trust my hand is not trembling? Do I trust my eyes are steady? When humans begin doubting things that once needed no checking, breath, grip, gaze, they stand very near an edge called placing trust wrongly. Kai did not doubt Taylor. He doubted his own ears. Was the commander's voice thinner? Was the word hold shorter? He began comparing silently, not with units of measure but vague ones. Thin, short, even, dull. These units had no scale. They only had shades. And shades betray easily. Leader, if at the mark still, number 2 trailed off, because one more word could drag the team into a whole hypothetical universe. At the mark, decide. Taylor. Fuel on board, 3 hours 15. Hey. Copy. State cost. Weight 4, 0, fly 8, plus 0.8%. Choose weight. Taylor. Numbers like a brick wall. Not enough to stop waves, but enough to sap their force. Crisis of trust, thanks to numbers, slowed one notch. Yet crises always had side doors. Crisis in tools. Compass trembled. Radio distorted. Right 20 light blinked longer. Verify frequency. No beacon. Discard. Each discard cut away a slice of trust in instruments. Cut too many, people turned to senses. Senses were good seducers. They spoke in sweet but harsh language. They gifted the eye a shining dot, the ear a faint hiss, the hand a twitch to pull the stick with leans. They whispered, trust me, quicker, less tiring, stronger. Crisis of trust did not explode. It ebbed like tide. By the time bare rocks showed, it was too late. Taylor placed another chair. Count 5. Minute 1, minute 2. He turned himself into rhythm. Rhythm was the chair for voice. When voice had a chair, it did not shake. When voice did not shake, others' hands trembled less. But being the chair had a cost. The chair bearer tired first. His throat was dry, so he ordered water break 15. A command sounding absurd in crisis, but an IV drip into the shared nerves. Leader, number 5 whispered. I didn't dare say, but your voice is different. Rhythm, Taylor replied, no justification. Hold rhythm. He did not argue different or same. To argue about tone was to pluck the taut, fragile string. He replaced the object of trust. Don't trust timbre, trust rhythm. The formation obeyed, hearing the count drop evenly like water in a cave. They looked less at right 20 light, compared less in shades, asked fewer if questions, and the storm therefore passed slower. Vector to auxiliary field came. Tower apologized. Pump maintenance 15. A hope trap. Disappointment erected with one sentence. Taylor smashed it. Touch and go, no stop. He refused pendulum effect. joy, grief, which wore nerves faster than crosswind. Long final sheer. Hold center line, drop. Wheels touched smoothly, then lifted. Gain, loss happened in 10 heartbeats. Discard, return. They went back to sky. A while later, vector to main field appeared clear. No one cheered. Hold rhythm, Taylor said. 2 words, worn from repetition, saved the team again. Because at the very moment when one wanted to exhale in relief, countless accidents had happened just because rhythm was lost after thinking it was over. Landing, pump screen. Trust did not return brightly. It withdrew, rationed, like a fever cooling. In debrief, the chief asked, "When did you know you were in a trust crisis?" Kai answered, "When I began comparing the commander's voice with yesterday's." Number 2, when I wanted to believe the right 20 light more than the artificial horizon. Number 5, when I felt my silence was safer than saying, "I'm afraid." Taylor wrote 4 words on the board. Object, order, mechanism, vent. Object of trust, person, machine, or rhythm. In what order? What mechanism to swap when one breaks? And how to vent so nerves don't burn out? The room was silent, but the silence of understanding, not fear. Crisis of trust was not a permanent crack. It was a bloody lesson that trust also needed a chair, and that chair bore the name, rhythm, marker, cost. Chair pulled out, trust fell. Chair replaced, trust sat upright. If anyone asked, why can a group flying correctly still spiral into error? The answer was not in one word, accident. It lay in 3 fused words: silence, pack, inertia. The first silence came from politeness. No one wanted to cut the commander when he was holding rhythm. The second from pride. No one wanted to say, "I'm afraid," when the mic was open. The third from thrift. Speaking meant turning. Turning meant paying cost. 3 kinds of silence, each reasonable, together became a thick blanket smothering fragile signals that should have been heard. The pack, as they experienced, was warm. It let them align breathing rhythms, blur individual errors, let the eye rest. But the pack was also blind when the tempo holder lacked feedback space. When right 20 light blinked steady the 3rd time, 3 cockpits saw. No one spoke. Why? Because the pack had learned too well the lesson, do not separate. And in that fog, do not separate slid in meaning, from discipline to inertia. Inertia was the invisible helm. It pushed the group along the path of least energy, the old decision. Good when the old decision was right, dangerous when it needed updating. Taylor, knowing this, never forgot the word mark. After 5, evaluate. After 10, decide. He forced breaking points for inertia, but between after 5, after 10, silence had room to grow. It grew in young minds where if, repeated endlessly, and never walked into words. Leader. Near the end of a count, Kai spoke, voice hoarse. I propose recheck coastal light frequency to the right. Copy. Scan. Taylor. Land turned quickly, a series of beeps, then silence. No beacon. Discard. Taylor. The word discard fell into nothing, like a pebble dropped into a night lake. It rippled. Ripples spread to each cockpit deck. Number 2 exhaled hard through nose. Number 5 tapped his panel edge. Kai bit his lip. Accumulation began. Each discard, another gram on fate's scale. Fate here was not a mystic hand. It was a chain of micro-decisions. Discard lights without beacon. Turn left, not penetrate. Wait 4, not fly 8. Hold rhythm, not relax. No separation without level 1, each right in its own context. But combined, they pulled fuel to amber, pulled nerves to saturation, where one more tremor would spill the cup. Fuel on board, 2 hours 30. Hi. Copy. Taylor. State cost. If weight vector, 0. If climb for clear sky, plus 2% for 10, risk icing. Choose weight. He concluded quickly. Right 20 light glowed again. This time, silence in the team was not uniform. It split in two shades: silence of acceptance, silence of endurance. The first wrapped one in armor, the second stuffed one in a box. In the box, breath echoed back, and dark thoughts grew larger than measuring. "Listen," Taylor said, releasing a pressure valve. "Anyone with worry, stated as number." Kai burst. Right 20 light. Estimated steady 15 seconds. Repeated 3 times in 10 minutes. Lan. No beacon on target band. Hui. Fuel down. Estimate 2 hours 15 left. Number 2. He paused, then changed. Propose recheck after 5. Copy. Mark 5. Taylor. By conjuring feelings into numbers, the formation bought a few more miles. But the clock still spun. Clouds still dense. Sea still black. When the main field vector appeared like a life ring, the crew did not explode in relief. They synced rhythm. Final, shear. Hold, drop. Touch, reverser. Pumps green. A hiss like a pressure cooker valve released. They escaped. This time. In debrief, the chief wrote big. Silence, plus pack. Inertia, lawn, fatal spiral. Then crossed each. Silence, politeness, pride, thrift. Counter by speak, number, marker, cost. Pack, warm, blind. Counter by feedback window, mandatory every 5. Inertia. Keep old decision. Counter by breakpoint scheduled. Taylor added in corner, in bad skies, right step by step is not enough. Must be right in rhythm. Fate, if it existed, only exploited broken rhythm. Therefore, holding rhythm was not a tactic, it was professional ethics. That bad night, if copied into a report, would have very few sensational tales. No lightning tearing sky. No explosion. No betrayal. Only a mist of consensus evaporating, a trust crisis ebbing, and a fatal spiral nearly swallowing the team, held back by 3 simple things: marker, cost, rhythm. Next morning, in a room smelling of cold coffee, they added to the soft SOP 5 lines, like 5 nails. Consensus must be organic, not just Roger, but mandatory feedback window every 5 minutes, turn feeling into number. Chair for trust, when tool wavers, set rhythm. When person wavers, set marker. Every decision carries cost. Reduce toxic silence. Legitimize the sentence "I'm afraid" as a safety signal, not a sign of weakness. Pack with brakes. Rule no separation remains, but 2 inertia breakpoints mandatory on every holding leg. Anti-spiral. Retrain flight illusions. Leans, graveyard, Coriolis. Each quarter. Not done once, leave aside. On the taxiway, Taylor tapped 2 knuckles on the nose cone. Talk talk. A metallic greeting. He knew there would be more nights with dead radios, twitching compasses, coastal lights turning to fireflies. But he also knew. Fate disliked teams that knew how to count. It feared crews who spoke in costs, dreaded crews who set markers, and was bored by voices steady enough never to betray formation. Kai folded his cap, taped a small note on the panel edge. Missed, chair, valve, brake, count. He smiled because those scraps, from outside, looked not poetic at all. But in the sky, poetry seldom saved lives. Discipline at the right time did. When wheels touched runway at day's end, no one said, "We won." They only exhaled a long breath, the breath of those who had just brought a team back from the edge of a spiral. Before lights out, Taylor wrote one last line in the log. Silence takes us into spiral. Counting takes us out. Choose counting. And thus, the story of collective psychological consequence did not end with an explosion, but with a small vow. Between murky sky and black sea, we do not promise to always be right. We only promise to keep rhythm, so if we must be wrong, together we still have a way back.